What happens when people feel misunderstood? There's an experience most people have had, but rarely talk about directly. Someone says something, a comment, a dismissal, a response that completely missed what you were actually trying to say, and the conversation just moves on. Nobody notices. Nobody comes back. You're left holding something that hasn't been addressed. Most people, in that moment, don't say anything. They adjust. They become a little quieter, or they change the subject, or they decide, not always consciously, that it probably wasn't worth raising anyway. That decision feels small, but it isn't always. What happens when feeling misunderstood becomes a pattern, not a single moment, but a recurring experience across relationships, across years, is that people begin to draw conclusions. Not always in words, more often in instincts. The conclusion isn't usually, "that person misunderstood me." It tends to become something broader, something like, "this is what happens when I try to express something real," or "people don't really want to know what I actually think." These conclusions rarely feel like conclusions. They feel like just the way things are. There's something worth sitting with here about how beliefs about being understood actually get formed. Most people don't decide, intellectually, that they can't be known. The belief builds gradually, response by response, conversation by conversation, until it becomes part of how someone moves through the world. A person who has been consistently misunderstood doesn't necessarily become visibly withdrawn. Often, they become very good at managing how they present themselves. They learn what lands well and what doesn't. They trim, adapt, edit before speaking. They become fluent in being palatable. And they may not even realize this is what they're doing. The cost of this is subtle. The cost of this is not usually a single dramatic rupture. It's a gradual narrowing of what feels safe to bring into a conversation. Over time, a person can be in relationships that look functional from the outside, while experiencing a quiet sense that they aren't really being seen inside them. What makes this particularly difficult to address is that the misunderstanding often doesn't look like a crisis. It looks like an ordinary conversation. The moment passes. Life continues. But the nervous system keeps a record. There's a parallel here with what we've been exploring in therapy. The way ruptures between a therapist and client, when left quietly confirm an old belief that closeness is unreliable. The same process operates in everyday relationships. Every unaddressed misunderstanding is a small data point. And over enough time, those data points accumulate into something that feels like evidence. This is one reason some people find it genuinely difficult to be understood, even when someone is trying. The instinct to edit, to manage the other person's reaction, has become so automatic that they've lost access to whatever they were originally trying to say. They've become skilled at being half known. The question of how someone begins to move in the other direction, is more complicated than it might first appear. It isn't simply a matter of deciding to be more open. It isn't simply a matter of deciding to be more open. A person who has learned through experience that openness leads to misunderstanding can't usually override that learning through intention alone. What tends to help, both in therapy and outside it, is the slow accumulation of experiences where being honest about something real produces a different result. Where someone actually heard what was meant, not what was easy to respond to. Where a moment of being misunderstood was noticed and returned to, rather than simply left behind. These moments don't erase the older evidence, but they begin to complicate it. Perhaps this is what genuine understanding, when it does happen, actually offers. Not just a pleasant feeling of being seen, though it is that, but a small piece of counter-evidence against a conclusion someone may have been quietly drawing for years. And that raises a question worth spending time with. What actually makes someone feel understood? Not just heard. Most people have experienced being heard without feeling understood. What is it that creates the difference? We'll explore that next.